All right, guys, today is Mother's Day, May 8th, 2022, and it's a little bit, I think it's about noon, so I'm getting a late start out here today. I came out this morning and I done a video on back glass tips and tricks, putting your back glass in and your stainless trim stuff. That video is actually uploading right now. I'm actually doing it for a subscriber, Scott Burns. He's going to be putting a back glass in his car, I think Monday or Tuesday, so I thought I'd do a tips video in case. Hopefully you can catch that. But plan for today, if I can get this lazy bum to help me. Oh no, you're already getting ready to lay down on the job, ain't you? Kiki, you gonna help me today? Well, at least she's here for moral support. So today's plan is to maybe get the car to run. I was wanting to do that yesterday, but I needed to let my gasket silicone cure overnight at least. On the intake and the water pump, so should be good to go by the time I get everything hooked up and running. I've got lots of little loose ends to do, but the good thing about this car, the whole beauty of it is it's just a simple car. An alternator is all that's on it, so this is going to be such a dream to get back running. There's really not a whole lot to do, but I do have to fabricate a bracket for my wiring pass-through because this block doesn't have the threaded boss in it for in the back like the 350 that I had in it before did, so I've got to come up with something on that. I've got an idea what I'm doing. Then I got to figure out my driver's side dipstick now, figure out how I'm going to mount it, but I got to get my plug wire looms on first, make sure I have clearance. Anyway, it's just pretty much putting together stuff, so not too bad. I am going to have to repaint my fuel pressure regulator bracket I made. The paint is very heavily chipped off of that. So I'm going to have to repair that. So that is the plan. Now, I'm going to give you all a tip here. I'm sure some of you guys know this, but some of you may not, and this could basically help you out. So on a brand new engine fire up, what I like to do when everything's all fresh and new, I like to run straight water in the engine. That way, if a hose pops off or you've got a bad antifreeze leak, your floor is not covered in nasty antifreeze, expensive nasty antifreeze. Antifreeze is a little bit harder to clean up than water. So I will fill that thing full of water, but I will never use a garden hose to fill up my engine. Tap water has a lot of corrosive stuff in it. It is not good if you have, especially if you have aluminum components on your car, like aluminum radiator, aluminum cylinder heads, or aluminum block. I have Edelbrock aluminum heads and I have an aluminum radiator. So you will want to use distilled water because it's basically cooked all the crap out of it. You can get gallon jugs of distilled water at Walmart for under $1. So I have a bunch of it here. I have probably 10 gallon. So I will fill this up completely with distilled water and then fire up the car and let it run, get the thermostat open and all that, make sure everything's fairly tuned and good, base tuned, I guess. And, at that point, once it shuts down and cools down, I will pull the drain plugs out of the side of the block on both sides and open the petcock on the radiator, and I will drain the entire system. That will pretty much flush out any contaminants that are inside of the block from the machine shop or, whatever. And the water will drain out pretty easy. Basically, all I'll do is just drain it right out here in the driveway because, there's not antifreeze in there for my dog to get sick on. And at that point, I'll go back and fill it up with distilled water and Prestone antifreeze, or Peak. I can't remember which I bought. I'll have to look. And I actually may have it in the house. There is a gallon of Prestone in there. I don't think it's full. I think I bought 2 gallons of Peak. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much the plan today. I'm just going to try to get this thing all put together and hopefully start it up. And obviously, if it'll start up, it should move, which would be kind of cool. If I could back this thing out in the driveway and then pull it back forward, that would be pretty awesome. One thing I got to find is my stupid little piece that goes in here to put fluid in those, flexible low-carb dipsticks. They have that silly little fill tube thing. I've got to locate that. I cannot remember what I did with it. I'm wanting to say it's probably in my cabinet, so I'll have to dig through that. That cabinet is packed full of garbage, so I got quite a bit to do, but not really. So the only other thing I'm worried about is the gas that's in the gas tank. That gas has been in there for almost a year now. I'm sure it probably may be okay, but that's just straight 91 from the gas station that probably has ethanol in it. So I don't have a lot of faith in that new fuel for its setting and being in something for a long time. So I'm debating on draining it out and just using it for my lawnmower and then putting fresh in here. But I'll have to walk up here to the gas station with the gas jug. So luckily the gas station is just like a block away, but that's kind of what I'm thinking about, because if the gas is already not too great, it could cause a little running issue with the car, and I'd be chasing my tail trying to figure it out. So it'd be like nipping it in the bud before I got, any further along. So I don't know. I think I might just pull the gas cap off and smell of it and see, I guess. Might as well try to get high right now, I guess. I gotta say, it does kind of smell a little funny. It doesn't really smell like brand new gas. It doesn't smell tarnished. It hadn't been that long, but I have read articles on, the new ethanol fuels. They just don't last very long. So, I don't know. Anyway, I won't get busy. Time to get to work. All right, guys, I thought I'd show this. This is the third, maybe the fourth time I've done it this way. So your main engine harness, like your wires that will go like from your ignition switch or whatever over to your starter and stuff, alternator, all that stuff. This is where I put it out on the firewall, is right back there. I've got a rubber grommet in there. Now that spot on the firewall, it just starts to curve under for the trans tunnel where it starts, and I do it right on the edge where the curve is. So if, in my case, my engine's moved 3/4 of an inch forward for HEI clearance, it actually, I have quite a bit of room, but if your engine was pretty far back, you'd be pretty tight. You'd have to do it probably in this area right here on this part, right before this little, little indent thing here. But having the wires come out there, they go straight to the starter and everything, and the alternator, which my alternator's on the right-hand side of the vehicle. But, originally these cars, the wire harness goes over some little clips that are up here, tabs that fold, and it runs up and over and then down. So when you open the hood, all you see is a wiring harness going in the shape of a horseshoe back there, which always bugged the crap out of me. But this way it kind of cleans up the firewall so you don't have a lot of crap there. So I thought I would show that. A good place to drop out wiring. All right, so I took a piece of sheet metal and I cut it out into a strip, basically. Anyway, I got a hole drilled in it and I rounded the corners, and I used my sheet metal brake over there and I broke it, bent it, basically. Now the transmission bell housing bolt will go through this, and it'll bolt in pretty much like that. And then this will sit on top of that. So I mocked it up in there, and I've outlined, my little bracket there. So I'm going to drill a hole right there, and then I need to trim this end down. I don't want it sticking out, but I will have to pull this off and drill that hole where I've got that mark right there. And then I've got a stainless steel Allen button head that I'm going to put from the bottom. And the reason is it's really, really thin head, because I just got a little bit of room off the bottom of that to the engine block. So it will come up from the bottom, and then I've got a nylon 1024 lock nut. I may have said 1032, it's a 1024. Anyway, I've got a nylon stainless lock nut that will actually go on the top of the bracket, so you will see that. But this is kind of the only on-the-fly fix idea I've got. I really don't want to redo that bracket and go back and re-bodywork it, weld, grind, bodywork, block, prime again, sand, and paint, like I did these components already. So I'm to the point now where I just want the car running, instead of spending 20 hours on one little part just to make it just right for me. You know what I mean? I'm done. I mean, I'm still gonna, if I don't like it, I'll still redo it, but I think that is a pretty fairly decent quality garage modification. So now I'm not going to paint this new L bracket that orange, because that's base coat, clear coat. I mean, that'd be a big ordeal to go through and do all that, and I'd have to wait on it. I'm just going to spray paint this with some Duplicolor engine spray paint, because I've mentioned it before, I like the engine color Duplicolors because they hold up better, especially when it comes to fluids like on an engine. So I will be using that. Probably use like a matte black, satin black, whatever I can find over there. I know I got a semi-gloss somewhere over there, so that's what I'm going to use, and then that way I'll be able to put it on today. But that's a plan. I will say I used a cutoff wheel on a 4-inch grinder, electric grinder, and I cut it out. But what I did after I cut it out, you know, it always has a rough edge. I use a 36 grit blaze, which that's all I have. If I had 80 or 120, I would use it. But I'm not the guy that goes and spends that much money on a whole bunch of different grits. 36 is usually where I start on everything. But anyway, I'll go around the sides and with the 36 and do it up, and then I'll switch to a brown Scotch it, or a red, whatever you want to call it. And I started on this, and you can already see where it smoothed the metal out pretty decent. And then I've got blue ones, and then I'll go back over it with blue on this edge, so it won't have that rough cut looking edge. It'll be really, really smooth. But I don't know, I'm probably still putting a little bit more work into it than I actually need for a little bitty bracket at the back of the engine. But you know, I built the whole car so far doing the trying to do a good job on it, so it's not time to start slacking. But you know, I do want to hear it run. All right, so since the whole end of this thing, this bracket, is just going to be floating now since it won't bolt down, I didn't want this rattling on the engine, so I put a little rubber bumper in there that I had, and then I've got some, I already had that thin sticky foam right there on it before, but that'll just kind of add a little bit more cushion to the metal side of it so it's not as loud. But I did get the hole drilled in it, even just having it left on the wiring, so I got up in there with a drill. That was pretty nice. But I basically used, you know, I have all kinds of little rubber grommets and bumpers and stuff like that in this box, so it's really nice to be able to get in here and find something that'll work, that's thin head, so it'll, you know, basically a cushion to keep it from rattling and chipping paint and all that kind of good stuff. But so I got the bracket finished up over there, the L bracket I made. I just need to paint it, but right now it's so hot I can't touch it because I used the Scotch-It disc around it, so it's pretty hot to the touch. So I'm gonna let it cool off a while and then Scotch Brite it all down and then spray paint it. All right, so I just did flat black. The flat black always dries really, really quick, so good enough. All right, well, I got it all bolted down and tight, so that part is done. Now I need to bolt this one on, bolt up the starter and all that, and I'm going to put on the, I guess the fuel pump, put the header on. What am I sitting here talking about it for? I'm going to be doing it! All right, so it's about 8:30 p.m. I am so close, but I got my back flared up so bad I can barely stand up straight at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and call it for the night and come back out tomorrow. I still need to put the drive shaft in it. I've got one torque converter bolt that I can't get to start, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to die grind the hole in the nice cheap flex plate. But I usually use a flywheel turner, and I will put the bolts in about halfway, and then I'll rotate it, the end, you know, the flex plate around with the flywheel turner, and you know, put all the bolts in just kind of halfway. That way nothing's tight and the flex plate still kind of moves a little bit. I loaned my flex plate turner out to a guy. It's been about 4 months ago, and I can't get him to return my calls or my texts. So apparently I've lost my flex plate turner, but that's what I get for loaning tools out. I never get them back, it seems like. So I'm under there trying to, you know, rotate it by hand, which is pretty much impossible now because I've already got the plugs and stuff in it. But anyway, I got two of them on there, and I basically centered it up, you know, the slack that it had, I centered it up where the bolt was right in the center because it had a little bit of movement. And I just went ahead and tightened the first one down all the way, put the wrench on it, and I used the wrench on the tight bolt to turn it enough to put the other bolt in. The other one went in just fine, so I rotated off of that second one all the way to the third one, and it won't start. So without having a flywheel turner, I'm going to have to rotate the engine over, and I don't want to do that until the drive shaft's in. So that's what's on the list for tomorrow. So I still need to put fluids in it. Well, distilled water. It's got oil in it. I've got the shift linkage hooked up. Everything. Plugs are in, the plug wires are on, valve covers are on, headers are on, collectors are tight. Alternator, belt, all the core support. So this thing's pretty much ready to light off when I get the drive shaft and torque converter bolts in. I am pretty sure that is it. I'm looking over here on the table. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty awesome. I need to change my filter out on the oil filter. But yeah, that's it. Almost, man, almost. So close. I got the dipstick bracket modified to where it fit in there. All I had to do was twist the bracket a little bit. So it ended up working out. But it's starting to look like it was before the engine started knocking the first time. So hopefully we don't have a repeat of that. I'm going to go ahead and pull it forward, close the door, and I'm going to go take me an Epsom salt hot bath, man. Thanks for watching. End of day 2.